don't own our own tennis shoe. When Nike started out of their garage, like Phil Knight started out of his garage, and I tell people all the time, look, it's not about a color. Like think about it. Even though when I help Black-owned business, I'm doing that because we at the bottom of the totem pole. But we want to create product for everybody. This product is for everybody, Blacks, white, Asian, Latino. But it don't have too many Black-owned companies. Like, show me how many Black-owned tennis shoe companies out there that's making functional shoes that actually own it.
What's been the biggest surprise of the stardom? I mean, you've been in this game for a very, very long time. What's been the biggest surprise about it all?
Our own culture don't believe that we could do it. You know, because they just don't get it. They're like, how you could do this? I mean, like, if I could do it, anybody could do it. You don't have to be the smartest person in the world. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You just got to have integrity and do good business. And these doors will open up for you. Building great relationships. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, trying to get that negative mindset out of our culture, because they still going back to, oh man, slavery, they did us this. And I'm like, you still harping on that, man. I never harped on that. Because I can't change the past, but I can change the future. And I think you got to get used to us being successful. And I think a lot of us, we block our own blessings because we don't think that we could do it because we're looking at a color. So, I mean, Muhammad Ali was a guy that, and I loved like his story because he didn't care about that. He just wanted to be around good people, but he did represent for the culture. Right. And I want more African-American owned tennis shoe companies. I don't want this just to be me. I want so many different product brands owned by us, but making it for everybody. Because think about it, when other cultures make products, they don't make it for them, they make it for everybody. And so I want that mindset of our people. If I could change that, that's the way we're gonna bridge the wealth gap.
What's been the biggest negative surprise of it all? The biggest negative surprise of the stardom?
Our people can't work together. Think about when I go down Rodale Drive and see all these stores. They're owned by all the same kind of looking people. None of them fighting. None of them caring about what each other have or got. And I love that. I want to see that for our culture and our people. That's why I fight to educate our culture and our people. Because we got to get on that page. Like, if we get on that page, we're going to be dangerous because we spend $1 trillion a year.
2.1 trillion.
2.1 trillion, think about it. And we don't own nothing. And we make 0.1% of Black CEOs in Fortune 500 companies, but we spending all the money.
In the back that came here, stop making them false narratives. I love my people. When you talk about slavery, our ancestors been through so much and we're not gonna forget it. You know what I'm saying? But what I wanna tell y'all is, even though we're gonna always be aware of it, but we have to do something to bridge the wealth gap. That's what I'm saying. We can't change the past, but we can change the future, and we're gonna constantly fight and educate our people. But I wanna let y'all know, Apple is making $32 million an hour. How do we get a piece of that? Because we need to be able to bridge the wealth gap. That's the only thing I'm saying. And that's the only way it's going to happen. We got to educate our people, to educate our culture. And that's what I'm...
Master P just stepped into a conversation that got way bigger than sneakers, business, or even hip-hop. What started as an interview about ownership and building Black-owned companies quickly turned into a heated debate over slavery, wealth, and whether successful people sometimes lose touch with what everybody else is dealing with. During his sit-down with Forbes, Master P was talking about something he's preached for years, ownership. He pointed at Nike and reminded people that Phil Knight started the company from humble beginnings, while arguing that there still aren't enough major Black-owned sneaker companies competing at that same level. Master P said he wants to see more Black entrepreneurs building products that everybody can buy. Black, white, Asian, Latino, anybody. And on the surface, that message wasn't really controversial. Ownership, building businesses, controlling your product, that's been part of Master P's whole brand since the No Limit days. But then the conversation took a sharp turn. Master P started talking about what he sees as a negative mindset inside the culture, saying some people still go back to slavery and everything that was done in the past. Then came the line that lit the internet up. He said, "You still harping on that?" And just like that, the business conversation was almost forgotten because people weren't arguing about sneakers anymore. They were asking what Master P actually meant. Was he simply saying people can't change history and should focus more energy on building wealth today? Or was he suggesting Black Americans talk too much about slavery and racism? Master P followed it by saying, "I can't change the past, but I can change the future." His bigger argument was that Black Americans spend enormous amounts of money every year, yet still control a relatively small piece of major corporate ownership. In his eyes, the answer is creating companies, building relationships, supporting ownership, and changing the mentality around what people believe they can accomplish. But that one phrase, harping on slavery, completely changed how the message landed. Because for a lot of people listening, slavery isn't some disconnected chapter from hundreds of years ago. They see a direct line from slavery to segregation, redlining, discrimination, and the wealth differences people are still debating today. So now, Master P wasn't just promoting shoes anymore. He had accidentally walked straight into one of the most sensitive debates in America, and the backlash came fast. And once that clip started moving around, people weren't just reacting to Master P's overall message. They were locked in on what they believed that one statement represented. Critics felt like saying people were still harping on slavery sounded dangerously close to the old argument that Black Americans should simply stop looking backward, work harder, and everything will eventually work itself out. That's where the pushback really started getting loud, because the people challenging Master P weren't necessarily saying ownership doesn't matter. Most actually agreed that building businesses, creating brands, owning property, and controlling more money inside the community are important. The disagreement was over how he framed the problem. Master P came from New Orleans, built No Limit Records into a powerhouse, turned music into business, and became one of hip-hop's biggest examples of independent ownership. That's exactly why his words carried extra weight. This wasn't some random person talking from the sidelines. This was somebody whose entire story came from overcoming tough circumstances and figuring out how to turn limited opportunities into serious money. But critics flipped that same story back on him. They argued that the neighborhoods Master P came from didn't become economically struggling communities by accident. Segregation officially ended only decades before his career took off, while redlining, unequal access to loans, housing discrimination, and other barriers left effects that didn't disappear overnight. So when Master P said, "I can't change the past, but I can change the future," some people heard motivation. Others heard something completely different. They heard a successful man telling people who still deal with the consequences of that history to stop focusing on where those problems came from. And that's where this whole thing got messy, because both conversations started getting mixed together. Master P was talking about economic action in the present. His critics were talking about why the present looks the way it does in the first place. Those aren't automatically opposite ideas. You can believe people should build businesses today while also believing history still matters. You can push ownership without pretending everybody started from the same position. But once that clip got chopped up and spread across social media, all that nuance disappeared fast. Now it was Master P versus the backlash. And people started asking an even bigger question. Had Master P actually said something out of touch? Or were people taking one controversial phrase and ignoring everything else he was trying to say? That question got even hotter when people started bringing history into the argument, because this wasn't only about something that happened hundreds of years ago. Critics pointed out that legal segregation in America ended within living memory, and there are still people alive today who grew up under rules that openly treated Black Americans differently. That's why some listeners felt Master P's wording hit a nerve. When somebody hears, "You still harping on that?" they might not hear a business lesson. they might hear somebody brushing past generations of barriers that affected housing, education, jobs, lending, and the ability to build wealth in the first place. And that's where one of the strongest responses came in. People argued that remembering history and building a better future don't have to cancel each other out. Other communities openly preserve painful parts of their past while still building businesses, creating wealth, and moving forward. So why should discussing Black history automatically be treated like somebody is stuck in it? At the same time, Master P wasn't saying people should sit around and ignore business opportunities. His whole point was almost the opposite. He was saying the future changes when people control more of what they create and when money starts flowing into businesses they actually own. But critics felt the way he delivered that message made it sound like mindset was the main thing holding everybody back, and that's a much bigger claim. Because starting a company is one thing, getting enough capital to scale it, landing distribution, surviving competition, getting shelf space, securing favorable loans, and turning a small operation into something that can compete with billion-dollar corporations is another game completely. That's why the sneaker example became so important. Master P asked where the major Black-owned functional shoe companies were, but people quickly pushed back by pointing out that Black entrepreneurs have been building clothing brands, footwear companies, restaurants, tech businesses, real estate companies, and independent brands for years. The real debate wasn't whether people were trying, it was whether the playing field for turning those businesses into giants was actually equal. And while the internet was still tearing apart every word from that interview, Master P was watching all of it unfold. He clearly wasn't happy with the way his comments were being framed either. And before long, he came back with a response of his own. And when Master P finally responded, he didn't back away from the conversation. He pushed right back at the people criticizing him. He said, "For the ones in the back that can't hear, stop making them false narratives." That line made it clear he felt people were twisting what he meant. Master P doubled down on the bigger message behind the interview, but he also tried to clean up the part that caused the most heat. He said, "I love my people. When you talk about slavery, our ancestors been through so much, and we not gonna forget it." That was important, because now Master P was directly saying he wasn't telling anybody to erase history or pretend slavery didn't matter. His argument was that remembering what happened shouldn't stop people from focusing on what can be built right now. Then he brought the conversation right back to money. Master P said Black Americans need to figure out how to bridge the wealth gap, and he used Apple as an example, pointing out how much money massive corporations generate while asking how Black businesses can get a bigger piece of that economy. Basically, his defense was simple. Don't confuse his push for economic power with disrespect toward the past. But the response didn't completely shut the criticism down. Some people felt this was the clarification they needed. They heard Master P saying, yes, remember the history, but also build something for the future. Others weren't buying it that easily, because their argument was that nobody invented the phrase harping on slavery. Master P actually used those words. So when he accused people of creating false narratives, critics felt like he was dodging responsibility for how his original statement sounded. And now the story had entered a whole different stage. At first, people were debating what Master P meant. Now they were debating whether his response actually clarified the message, or whether he was blaming the audience for reacting to words he chose himself. That's what made this controversy bigger than one viral clip. Master P wasn't really backing off his economic message at all. If anything, he was standing on it even harder. The only thing he was rejecting was the idea that pushing Black ownership somehow meant forgetting Black history. And that's where the conversation gets a lot more interesting. Because underneath all the noise, Master P and many of his critics actually agree on more than it first appears. And this is where the whole debate gets way more interesting. Because once you strip away the viral clips and the internet yelling, both sides are actually talking about the same destination. More ownership, more money staying in the community, and more people controlling what they build. The real fight is over what is stopping that from happening faster. Master P puts a lot of weight on mindset. His message is basically that people have to believe they can build something, stop waiting on somebody else to open the door, and start creating their own opportunities. And coming from him, that message makes sense. No Limit became famous because Master P didn't wait for the traditional music industry to hand him the perfect deal. He built leverage first, moved independently, and turned that hustle into a much bigger business. But critics are saying mindset alone doesn't explain everything. There are already Black entrepreneurs selling sneakers, clothing, food, technology, services, and everything in between. Some are running businesses out of stores, some are online, and some are still moving product independently while trying to reach that next level. So the issue isn't simply that nobody is trying. The harder part is scale. Building a brand that makes a few $100,000 is completely different from building the next Nike. Once you start talking factories, national distribution, marketing budgets, retail partnerships, investors, loans, and competing against companies with billions behind them, the game changes fast. That's why some people push back so hard when Master P asked where all the Black-owned shoe companies were. They felt like the better question wasn't, why aren't people creating? It was, why do so few independent companies make it from small business to global powerhouse? And that's a much deeper conversation. Even Master P's own career shows how complicated that road can be. He became one of hip-hop's biggest symbols of ownership because he understood something early. Having talent is cool, but controlling the business behind that talent is where the real power lives. So his larger point about ownership definitely wasn't crazy, but the backlash was forcing people to separate two different things. Encouraging somebody to build wealth and explaining why that wealth gap exists in the first place. And once those two arguments got mixed together, every sentence Master P said started getting judged like it was part of a much bigger statement about the entire Black community. That bigger statement is exactly what kept people arguing, because Master P wasn't speaking about one person or one business. He was talking about the culture as a whole. He said one of the biggest problems he sees is that people don't believe enough in their own ability to build. And he also said Black people struggle to work together. Then he compared that with major luxury brands sitting near each other on places like Rodeo Drive, all competing in the same space without publicly tearing each other apart. That comparison sounded powerful at first, but critics quickly challenged it. Big corporations compete hard behind the scenes. They fight for customers, copy trends, undercut each other, buy rivals, battle over market share, and sometimes spend years trying to push competitors out. The difference is that most of that warfare doesn't look like personal beef on social media. So when Master P said other groups seem to work together better, some people felt he was oversimplifying how business actually works. At the same time, there was still something real underneath his point. Public conflict can absolutely hurt smaller businesses. When a company is still trying to grow, reputation matters, relationships matter, and burning every bridge can cost opportunities. Master P has spent decades preaching that business has to be bigger than ego, and that's clearly where part of his frustration comes from. But critics didn't like the idea that Black people were somehow uniquely bad at cooperation. Their response was basically, competition exists everywhere, and that pushed the conversation into another lane. Maybe the problem isn't that one community fights more than everybody else. Maybe the bigger issue is that smaller Black-owned businesses often have less room for error in the first place. A giant corporation can survive a bad year, a failed product, or an expensive lawsuit. A small independent company might not. That's why this debate couldn't stay simple. Every time Master P reduced the issue to mindset, critics brought up structure. Every time critics focused on structural barriers, Master P came back to personal responsibility and ownership. And somewhere in the middle sits the part that both sides keep touching without fully saying it. You can have obstacles in front of you and still need a strategy to beat them. The controversy was no longer about whether Master P loved his community. He already made his position clear on that. Now the real question was whether his message was tough love, or whether he was putting too much blame on the very people he was trying to motivate. By the time Master P answered the backlash, one thing was obvious. He wasn't taking back the core of what he said. He still believed the real mission was economic power, more ownership, more businesses, more control over where the money goes. What changed was the way he explained the slavery part after people pushed back. His follow-up made one thing clear. He was not saying the history should be forgotten. He said, "We're not going to forget it." But he also stood firmly on the idea that people can't change what already happened, so the focus has to be on what can be built next. That's where the phrase "bridge the wealth gap" became the center of his defense. And this is where the controversy gets a little tricky. Because if you only hear the response, Master P sounds much more balanced. Remember the past, respect the ancestors, understand the history, but also create businesses and chase ownership today. The problem is that people had already heard the original interview. They heard you still harping on that first. So when Master P came back accusing people of pushing false narratives, critics felt like he was trying to separate himself from a controversy that came directly from his own wording. That's why his response didn't completely kill the story. It actually created another question. Was Master P being misunderstood, or did he simply explain himself better after seeing how badly the original comment landed? Those are two very different things. And to be fair, short clips can absolutely make conversations look harsher than they really were. The full interview showed Master P talking much more broadly about entrepreneurship, confidence, ownership, relationships, and building products for everybody. But that doesn't mean people imagine the controversial part either. He said it. And sometimes one sentence can overpower 10 minutes of a bigger message. That's exactly what happened here. Master P wanted the conversation to be about Black economic growth. The internet turned it into a conversation about whether Black people talk too much about slavery. And once those two things got connected, there was no easy way to separate them again. Now everybody had picked a side, some saying Master P was dropping necessary game, others saying he was blaming the community too much. But the real answer might be somewhere between both arguments. And maybe that's the real reason this blew up so hard, because people weren't actually arguing over whether Black Americans should succeed. Everybody in this conversation wants more ownership, more businesses, more opportunities, and more money staying in the community. The disagreement is over how you talk about getting there. Master P believes people have to stop thinking small, build their own companies, create products for everybody, and focus harder on what can be controlled right now. That's been his message for decades, and his own career gives him a strong reason to believe in it. But the backlash showed something else. People don't want history treated like an excuse whenever current economic problems come up. They want room to talk about what happened, what came after it, and how those effects can still matter without being accused of living in the past. And both things can exist at the same time. You can remember history and still chase ownership. You can acknowledge barriers and still push people to build. You can respect what Master P accomplished without agreeing with every word he used to explain how other people should move. That's why his response mattered so much. Instead of walking away from the controversy, Master P came back saying people were creating false narratives, made it clear that he wasn't telling anybody to forget slavery, and then pushed the conversation right back toward economic empowerment. Whether that response helped him or made people even more suspicious depends on who you ask. Some people heard clarification, others heard damage control, and some probably agreed with his bigger point from the beginning, but still thought the harping on slavery wording was completely unnecessary. That's what makes this one more complicated than a simple right or wrong internet beef. Master P was trying to talk about the future, but one comment dragged the entire past into the room with him. Now I gotta know what the Dripzine family thinks. Did people twist Master P's message into something he never meant? Or did he cross the line with the way he originally said it? And after hearing his response, do you think he cleared things up or made the backlash even worse? Drop your take down below, hit that like button, subscribe to Dripzine, and make sure those notifications are on so you don't miss the next story.